So we've been trying to track in our states how we're doing on incidents. And what I'm showing you here is the latest data that, thanks to our people pulling from NFIRS, gives us 2018, 2019, 2020. I haven't given you the ones where they were malfunctioning. I haven't given you ones where there was no incident. These are CO incidents that have happened and have been reported by our fire departments. Now remember, this is a voluntary reporting, so nothing in, nothing out, but these are consistent with what we've been seeing. And you can see, that New Hampshire is about the size, little bigger than Maine, and Vermont is about half the size of New Hampshire. So you can kind of get a sense. The best thing about these is these are 20%, basically close to 15 to 20% drop during that time period. And those numbers earlier were consistent with numbers that we had in 2016 and 17. So we are not increasing our incidents in our state. And if anything, we're starting to decrease them, which I think is good news as we keep going. So with that note that we are kind of making some difference, I wanted to talk about this tough issue that we all have going on. And that is this issue of acute versus chronic or intermittent CO exposure. That's been floating around in the back of a lot of our discussions with, we know that our current CO alarms are designed to detect acute life-endangering events, high levels over a short period of time. We saw that in the data presented from the NOx representative. Thank you, Neil. We know that smokers already have CO levels of up to 9% in a carboxyhemoglobin, a CO hemoglobin test. At 20%, you start to feel headache, nausea, fatigue in terms of blood levels. So this is a tough group. We know that that CO can be a trigger at lower levels for a smoker towards initiating heart attacks and those kinds of things. So you can be a smoker exposed to low levels and suddenly you've got a heart attack that's no one is realizing. And I think I have some cases, and so how do we learn about these cases? So I went and hunted through the medical literature for the last 15 years. And to my distress, there's almost nothing written for clinicians. There's one comprehensive article from 2015 in a neurology journal. But when I interviewed a local geriatrician who deals with people's cognitive issues all the time, he was unaware of carbon monoxide having some of these issues. So we have very little understanding, very little recognition in the emergency room when people come in with headache, nausea, fatigue. There is an English paper that shows that they were getting, 10 to 15, 5 to 10 rates of people coming in with those symptoms in the winter having CO levels. Then we have the other challenge, which is intermittent CO exposure. Classic one is idling engines. I think there was a big fuss about Ford Explorers and the state police a little while ago when they were idling, that they were getting headaches and fatigue. I think one of the saddest cases I can refer to that the members of the Alliance know about is a family where mother was having headaches and kids were having irritability. She was pregnant. She had 2 kids. She was having trouble paying attention as the kids were behavior issues. And after much, much effort, multiple people coming in to check for CO, did they manage to check CO when the dryer was running? And that was one of those things. They were getting intermittent chronic, intermittent exposures over time in a pregnant woman. The family has since done much better, but that's certainly a challenge. Thinking about sort of other exposures that we maybe don't recognize. Not so long ago, I heard about a relative who had a stroke, and he'd been out shoveling really huge snows, the kind of snows we've had recently. And he was using his gas-powered snowblower in a very tight space next to getting the huge piles of snow out next to the garage. He went in the house, he collapsed and got diagnosed with a stroke. Now, no one seeing him took the history that he had just been using a snowblower. So his stroke diagnosis perhaps is related, perhaps not. Then the other kind of thing was another New Hampshire resident who talked to me recently that he had been having headaches and feeling foggy and not doing well, and he had every kind of test, multiple tests, been in multiple times, and finally figured out that he had connecting exhaust holes from a trailer, which was a workshop, that was loose, and every time he was out there working on his trailer, he was getting symptomatic. That got dealt with, and not that the medical establishment figured it out, but they eventually figured it out separately. Another example from the Hanover Fire Department was of an elderly gentleman who was having increasing cognitive decline, and the family was worried about him, and they finally moved him to assisted living. There he got much, much better immediately. And they went back and looked at his house, and he had a crack in his heating exchange of his furnace, and that was part of the problem. At chronic low levels, of 20%, you get those kinds of symptoms. We had a lot of examples here of pregnant women, children, and elderly, or those with cardiovascular risk. We have not got a good way to detect this. And certainly we haven't been able to get the acute CO alarms in enough use. So I'm going to just present this as a challenge that we have coming forward. If you would unmute the mics, Kelly, and get people's inputs about what their experience is with what their experience has been with non-acute CO poisoning. I have more examples. I've got a lovely one from Sharon that she sent me a news clip that I wasn't able to put up, but that was a woman who'd spent years having difficulties. Open the conversation.
Hi, artists. This is Sharon. Hey, great summit. Thank you so much to everybody who is contributing. Your point about the gentleman who was experiencing cognitive issues and his family moved him to assisted living, that's really important because without detection, without suspecting it was CO, that home would have been sold to a new unsuspecting family, and they could potentially have the same issue since most home inspectors don't inspect for CO poisoning.
Mm-hmm. That's interesting at point of sale that the home inspectors don't look particular for that. Is that true in our region as well? Joe and Michael?
Would suspect it is, for sure.
Gee, we could train home inspectors so they knew what they were looking for along with it. Yeah, they just look about whether your floors are tipped or not, right?
Well, it just seems that CO poisoning is a new and an emerging safety concern. I mean, everyone has known about CO for a very long time, but not to the extent that, we're discussing today. So very logical evolution is to include building inspectors into the solution.
Mm-hmm. Is there a building inspectors organization?
Oh, there must be. Yeah.
I'm about to get educated in a new way here. Okay, guys, we got to go looking for that.
They inspect for radon, don't they? They're building inspectors?
Yeah, but they put in the radon kits is what they do and come back and pick them up.
Yeah, they should have
Yeah.
a check for that as well.
All right, thank you. We're going to bring that to the Alliance and see if we can
Good idea.
make another group aware of what's going on, right? I was struck that these videos that Neil was showing were nice, modern-looking homes. They were not old and decrepit that those people had died in. It is an equal opportunity poison where it's at. Other people's comments about their experiences with non-acute CO poisoning? Well, I know we're a little bit zoomed out, so.
Hey, Artis, this is Neil, and I guess I just have a question. And you know, maybe everybody knows this but me, but how does the medical profession, are they required to report CO poisonings to any specific group for collection of these? You know,
only if it's a cause of death. You know, it goes down as on the medical, you know, the report of the death certificate, what the cause of death was. You know, I don't think we have a well-organized way to report it otherwise.
So do we think that annual stat that all of us have used, you know, nearly 500 people die a year of carbon monoxide, do we think that's accurate, way low, way high? I mean, that number hasn't changed forever.
Neil, it's Wendy Gifford. I'm gonna jump in here as someone who's been involved with CO issues for a long time. There is not one single source for CO deaths. The CPSC only is for consumer product related ones. The CDC is getting better, but there is a 90,000 number of people affected, not necessarily deaths, that I think we are very unaware of. So I think we don't have a central source for that information, and that is a problem.
And then it's complicated
I can
by
tell you from a fire marshal's office perspective that the data that we get on CO related incidents is very much underreported, and in even talking with the EMS field, their I codes that they use to track that is open to the interpretation of the provider as to what field they select. And in many cases, when we looked at the raw data with our peers here at Maine EMS, some of that was as suspect as we see for fire data in the infant system. So it's certainly nothing to hang our hat on. And I got to tell you, the medical people that I have talked to about two issues that I've got in Maine. Number one, smoking on oxygen. And number two, this chronic effect of low-level CO. When I talk to the medical people that I do, they look at me like a deer in the headlights look. It's not even on their radar screen whatsoever. Mm-hmm. And I'm almost questioning whether they think I'm being bizarre or just off my rocker. But I don't think it's well documented or talked up in the medical arena for the circumstances that we're talking about in these issues.
No, it often gets put as an ER problem, but it's not. It's like an orphan. It's not the neurologist. It's not the pulmonologist who's seeing somebody with bad lung disease. It's not the neurologist. It's not the psychiatrist. It's sort of an orphan, you know, so that the only things I've seen are sometimes emergency room people will be concerned about it. But certainly, you know, we did earlier surveys of school nurses. Remember, Mary, that project with, or not school nurses, nurses in the ER. And they had a very low awareness of it as well. So it's not just it's that first person who sees you.
Yeah. It was not on the intake form in the emergency room.
Yeah.
Well, do you have a working carbon monoxide alarm? I know you feel like you have the flu, but that code that Adrian brought up, that acronym, I think that's brilliant. That would be really great to bring to the States.
It just seems like the medical profession, we maybe the CPSC can do it, or CDC. Somebody's got to get them to start documenting this better. And much like, Joe, I don't know if you have an idea, but on the NFIRS reports from fire departments, there should be a checkoff mark for, CO poisoning, and then under that, fatality versus injury or something like that. And I mean, I heard yesterday I was out in Florida that getting something in NFIRS changed is like, has to be an act of God. Because, I was talking about car fires, and right now with the increase of electronic vehicles out there, NFIRS doesn't break up if there was a car fire, if it was electric or gas, and because you don't have that information, you don't know what you need, what kind of training you need, et cetera.
No, and to your point, I mean, in NFIRS, if it's not a required field, it usually doesn't get filled in anyway. But I mean, like, I'd like to see it expanded so that if CO actual, which has its own code, gets triggered in the NFIRS system, if there is an actual alarm, there should be a consequential reading by one of those firefighters with a meter assessing that environment, and that reading from that meter should be entered into that report. So then we could start taking these things and actually see what some of these readings are for these different circumstances that they're responding to. But I don't know, maybe that's a task for the next fire marshal.
And Sharon, maybe this is something, Sharon's group has a new agreement or new partnership with National Fallen Firefighters Foundation, and maybe this is something that the foundation can work on too.
Yeah, thank you for that, Neil. So data is absolutely one of the 6 hurdles to CO safety. NFIRS obviously is a great tool, but it's problematic because less than 75% of fire departments worldwide or across the country use NFIRS. It's a voluntary system. It reports incidences, not individuals. There's very little narrative on the NFIRS report. A lot of times they say, see the EMS module, but the EMS module is problematic because of HIPAA data. We don't have access to it. So a lot of issues with data, and that's one of the areas that we plan to tackle with the coalition next year. We've talked to a number of different people, and a lot of people want to work on data and improve it, and there's a lot to do.
Yeah, it's sort of like, garbage in, garbage out is where we're at this point, aren't we? I mean, it's not that I make fun of NFIRS, but we really are not getting the whole picture. And I agree, we need to find somehow to summarize these cases. I have collected a bunch here. I would like to hear other people's cases, and I'm willing to write up a case report for the medical literature, because I think this needs to get in there. So people can contact me, artist.olson@dartmouth.edu, if you have cases with enough detail that I can end up reporting some of these low-level or chronic intermittent cases that are not showing up as acute poisoning. I need a little more detail for a medical report, but I don't need identities. I have one last question I want to raise to the group. I want to see if I can manage my technology is not liking me today. At one of our earlier summits, we really emphasized about having a CO detection device on the go-in bay. Among other things, it could end up alerting them in a heart attack and other settings we've heard about where people didn't expect that there was CO. And I'm curious from people within our audience here, how widely are we now seeing those on the initial go-in bag?
Washington, New Hampshire has one.
Oh, good. Is it helpful to you?
Well, it's never gone off when we've gone in with the first in bag. If we have CO reported ahead of time, then we end up sending someone in with a detector.
Aha. So if you know it ahead of time, okay.
Right.
Good. So I'm glad you got it on your bag, and we hope we'll never have the experience. Anybody else?
Right.
This is Mike DeRocher. All our state fire marshals carry CO meters with them year round. So every building they go in, they have their meter on.
But that's not the frontline people going in, your EMS.
Not first responders, no.
Yeah.
But when we're out doing routine building inspections, which we do 10,000 roughly a year, they have their meters on.
How often does it go off?
We've evacuated buildings every year because of high levels of CO.
What do you think it'll take for EMS to have it on their go-in bags? Because many times it comes off as a medical problem first, doesn't it? Sometimes your EMS and your fire department are together. Sometimes they're separate, right?
Yeah, I think it's just an educational component. I don't think anyone will argue the point. I think it's more of an awareness, which is what this CO Alliance does. So this is a good point that is being raised.
Great. We would love to move forward on that because I talked 2 years ago at the statewide New Hampshire event, and only about a third of people had CO. This was an EMS conference. Only about a third of people had CO detection devices on their go-in bags, but they got the idea. I think it changed after that. All right. Well, I'm going to turn this back to my co-host, Michael. Are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay. I have had my brain so charged, I hope other people have, and that it's been educational for them in terms of the next steps. And I will look forward to our group being able to act on some of these. Wendy, I would love to keep hearing how we get better data and trying to go the next step. Any other comments from the project organizers here or from the Alliance members before we thank everybody? Fill out your survey. We'd like to give you the information you want and the topics you want. So we need to hear how things.
I'd like to, we'll get the certificates out probably after I come back from vacation, though. I'm going to be gone for a couple of weeks. So I'll get those out electronically. And I'd like to have the address, a mailing address of each of the presenters. If you could email that to me, I would really appreciate it.
And we have started a Facebook page for the Alliance, and that was in the chat, so you can go on there and take a look. We are going to be working on posting the videos of this program and some of the other information that was presented. So yeah, look for updates on the Facebook page and like the page so you can stay in contact with us. You're more than welcome to email anybody on the Alliance if you want more information on anything that was presented. You can contact the presenters, and we will make that all available to folks. Once again, thank you
Michael,
so much.
I want to thank the person in the chat who told me that detectors are now required in New Hampshire for EMS providers. So there has been some headway here.
That's great. I missed that, I guess.
Yeah, I missed it in the chat. Thank you, Philip. So that wasn't where it was when I last talked to EMS. So it's wonderful. All right, I don't mean to drag us back, but.
So again, thank you, folks, for taking time out of your day to work with us on the CO issues, and we look forward to holding an additional one next year. Hopefully it'll be in person. We're discussing about also having an online option for folks, because we're actually seeing a lot of attendance using these online features, and that helps get the word out. So thanks again, everyone. Take care. Stay safe.
Thank you.